Oh no, I'm still chewing.
Oh no, dude! Everybody knows you can't chew and Daily Motion show at the same time. Far too
We weren't
dangerous.
we weren't made for multitasking, and that's what that is.
Chewing and Daily Motion showing is just far too much for the everyday man. But thankfully, we've got AI on our side. That's my segue. That's all I had. You know.
No, I liked it. That was good.
Anyway.
Oh my God, you posted your short.
I did. I posted my short, and I'm not even gonna wreck it today. You know what? It's people can go see it. You just look at my profile anywhere, and it's there.
I'm gonna wreck it.
Okay, fine, that works. Let's talk about AI today, y'all, because I honestly don't even care if people watch this stream or not. Like, we went and made the thumbnail and title for it and everything, but honestly, this is just something that I need to talk about anyway, because if I have to have another day of opening up Twitter and seeing like 80 different old designers and motion designers complaining and moaning about AI, but then not doing anything about it, I'm going to lose it. So let's just talk about this instead of everybody just shouting into the void. And there's a couple different approaches here. I don't really have a super like solid narrative to go through on this in terms of just like what I want to go through in each time. But here's what I'll start with. And here's like, everybody has their own concerns with AI, right? Lots of people are concerned about like if video generation is where it is now as a first generation thing, like imagine where it is in 5 years, and like worried about it taking over the actual creative production a little bit. That's not as much what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is this skill gap, okay? The perceived skill gap that there already is in the industry. You take the average everyday person who isn't super into motion design or the creative field or whatever, and you show them something from ordinary folk versus another versus like a freelancer who's just starting out or something, doesn't have a whole lot of experience. The perceived difference between the skills of those two groups is way, way, way smaller to the average person than it would seem to us, you know? And so more of the concern for me is that's only going to, that like perceived gap is only going to get smaller if people are already thinking that like some super linear ass, like boring looking, non-technically great stuff from like some very beginners in the industry is at like that same level as like a tendril or an ordinary folk or something relatively. What about when there's like a whole new league of people that can use these tools to generate something that's okay at a first pass, you know? I'm not even talking, it could be motion, it could be design, it could be whatever. But what that does, because I'm not worried about like, oh no, maybe I won't be able to like animate as well or whatever. I'm worried about what that does to the industry budget wise. You think about, and I feel a little bit better about our position compared to the much larger studios like a Buck or something like that, but not really, because if I'm thinking about, and Noah, you can give me your thoughts or whatever, how to spin this into a positive thing in a sec. But for right now, like this morning, I've really had a hard time to think like, it seems like there's a pretty inevitable plunge in prices that's going to come from this sort of thing. Like, I think, and it's kind of been slowly happening over the past however many years, just as like more people have gotten into motion, you get like the sort of older legacy media agencies, like when Chris Do was running Blind and that was his main thing and not the future, you're able to get out in LA like you're hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions for different projects, right? And that's because it was like such a smaller selective group. But now it's wider and we're out here charging like tens of thousands compared to hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. We've never even cracked 100K on one sale, you know? And that makes me super worried for that cascading effect for a lot of those larger agencies that like, I mean, we know some different people that like need hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in, like $250,000 plus every month, or they're losing money, you know, because everybody has these teams and whatever already. That's a little worrisome. I'm more worried about like the economics of it.
It's really just going to be about adoption. I mean, if people are able to utilize it and then hop on the train of actually being able to, profit off of this, then they'll stay around. And if they're not, then they're going to rely on the client base that refuses to use it or already has relationships with those companies. And then, eventually it'll just slowly transition into those larger, older companies when it just continues to make more and more sense to go with the new technology or the people who are able to utilize it properly. It's like, yeah, it's gonna rough up a bunch of businesses and like churn over people, but it also to me represents like this kind of boundless opportunity, because on one hand, it, like, what is it actually doing, right? It's going and making it easier, sure, but like faster to quickly get to an idea. That means the people that have actually done this for a long time and have expertise in animation and in design are going to be able to faster, more quickly get to an even better idea than they would have been able to just working alone, and much better of an idea, much better of a concept, and much better of an execution than the people who have just jumped into it. And while that may not be super noticeable to the average person, like right now what we do is already that difference. You already pointed out it's not super noticeable, but there's still value in it, and there's still people who notice. I think it's more so just really pushing the bar of what can be done and how fast it can be done, as opposed to necessarily squeezing it together. You know what I mean? Because like there's no real ceiling on this creativity and this like fidelity and the speed, right? So like it can kind of just keep going, and this is just an accelerator up. I think a lot of people are seeing this like imaginary ceiling where they're like, well, I'm already this good, and if the AI can like get this good, but no, it's like you stand. If it's a platform, you're not like racing the AI. You're meant to like stand on top of it and let it push you. You know what I mean? Like reach the stars together, utilize it.
Okay, here's what I'll say to that. Is it not concerning that like the bar seems like it's going to be way higher if everybody has to stand on top of this thing instead? It's basically just like a new normal of whatever the like really good shit is. And wouldn't it make it even then less valuable to have like whatever that perceived value is? Because I feel like if you're looking at like a bar like graph of this, I feel like it gets to a point where it's like if we're already looking at like a couple percentage points difference in how people would perceive, like the average person would perceive the quality difference. For us, I mean, you're probably talking about like a percentage of a percentage, of difference there at that point.
Like maybe it, but it's kind of like when you like do a curl with 5 weights for 5 pounds versus 10 pounds, you can feel it a lot more than if you're doing it with like 110 pounds versus 120 pounds. Like that sort of difference is hard to perceive in contrast. But if you have constantly been doing it with like exactly 100 pounds and then someone raises it, you're still gonna notice. And so it's just kind of like resetting it and getting people more used to a higher standard, and then we're gonna naturally readjust our standards, I think, as a collective, and then be able to notice that extra bit of difference on top. And whether that's brought by AI or brought by people, I don't know. Like a lot of this is like just most of it is just very super duper unknown of like, well, will it get to a point, and how fast will it get to a point where whatever the person adds on top of the AI can just be done also by the AI? You know what I mean?
And then we're just like, Wally, but
and then we're just Wally or whatever. But like, it might happen. I don't know. But we're still people, and people have people's best interests in mind. That's not to say that they're like, that's not like an argument against like letting AI take over. It's more of an argument against like, well, then that takes out basically all the value of it. Like, yeah, it can be fantastic and good marketing, but if that's just the standard, then nobody cares anymore. People care about things that are like different. And once you like kind of set a baseline, if AI sets like content is amazing and maybe content like just loses value, what people are going to want is what the AI really can't bring. You know, it's what they don't see that they want. It's what's not there as much.
I like what Nick M says in the chat. He says, over time, human work will become more of a premium, like handcrafted stuff nowadays. I think it's going to be a
I mean,
huge
it's already, yeah. I mean, you
thing
can
of
see that
like
in like
the
cars and
organic
stuff
stamp,
all the time.
like an organic design studio versus a like GMO infused design studio. You know?
Yeah. I mean, people already buy or so much organic stuff, so much organic produce a year, even when some of the organic produce is exactly the same. It just has a stamp of organic on it. I mean, people are so emotionally driven anyway, so
Right.
you can't come at this from a fully logical point of view anyway. And then there's going to be people who are like, no, we don't use AI, but what they mean is they don't use like a specific AI.
But they're using other stuff that they don't even realize is like with some sort of algorithm or machine learning anyway.
I think that people are just going to also sometimes lie about that.
That's true. I think it's also, I mean, it's just, we've had algorithms and whatever for years, you know, like it's been a sort of unseen problem for, I don't know, the entire time that we've been alive, at least. That like the vast majority of people do not understand how the things that they're using actually works, you know, like everybody's used Google, and I can confidently tell you that there's probably like 1% of people that actually understands how you type something in and you get generally what you're looking for, you know?
I mean, I just honestly see it as such a parallel, this whole thing as such a parallel to like the Industrial Revolution, where yeah, it like kind of reshaped everything. But what people, especially like farmers, weren't able to see before shit got
Automated.
automated. There it is. And machines became so commonplace is what the opportunity on the other side was going to be, which was like computer technology and like worldwide transportation systems and all that shit. Like you're not going to be able to see that in like 1910 as a farmer in like Midwest America. You're not going to be able to predict that. And I think that we're in kind of a similar position where we just don't know what is the next kind of frontier. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. It's getting a little nebulous, though. You could kind of say that about anything.
I don't think I could.
Just like a blanket statement, we don't know, you know?
Oh, yeah, you could say I don't know about anything. I'm talking specifically about this AI technology and its similarity to a little bit of a revolutionary tool.
Somebody in chat thinks that you have a beach in the background because the roof in the back looks like water and then the wall looks like sand.
Yeah, that's a beach.
Surprise. And what I just said is actually untrue entirely.
That's right.
Lucas says they're saying the new generation will actually be more technologically inept as they won't understand the stuff that happens in the background. I would agree with that.
Maybe.
I think people will understand how to use tools, but not actually know the like inner workings of how things happen. You know?
I like all the sci-fi movies where people like just know everything about technology. Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, oh yeah, let me fix that. I need a conversion reactor or something.
Right.
What the fuck? I don't know how likely that is versus people who just know the tools. But there's always going to be people who are super interested in how things work. And luckily AI will be able to explain it to us. Hooray.
Woo!
It'll make learning easier, which is nice. Which also, again, raises the floor for how much people like will generally know.
Well, I mean,
which is a more well-informed society.
But think about our age group right now. You think like the majority of people that are in college at the moment able to just be like, oh, okay, I have this assignment or whatever. You don't have to pay for like Chegg or any of that other shit anymore to figure out how to do the problems or whatever. You can literally just be like, bing, boom, bop, ChatGPT, tell me the answer, and it will just do it.
And to that I say, were those classes and and that normal, typical structure of school really the best way to learn anyway? Is that
No,
really
but that's
taking
not
so
what
much
I'm.
away?
No, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm getting at is more of a like. There's already such a small group of people that are actually self-starters or whatever anyway, and willing to actually figure stuff out. Like the type of person that can even use Chat GPT to be able to be able to develop a program without programming knowledge and be able to piece together what it's giving you and understand like what is the good information and what is the bad. I feel like it's a pretty small group of people, and that a lot of people would just completely take it at face value or just like want it all in one stroke and just kind of be done with it, you know? Yeah. And not really think through those sorts of things. That's more of what I was getting at. Not, yes, haha, college bad, we know.
True. I also see it as like a bit of an invitation to learn. I mean, that's kind of what the internet was. Imagine how many things you wouldn't know if you were a kid that just like wasn't curious and didn't use the internet. You know what I mean? Like I learned so many things just by being like, okay, well I wonder blah blah blah. I literally learned graphic design kind of like that. So I think it's gonna function as a similar way to like the internet in a way.
Yeah.
Inspiring people.
Joey says the only revolution I see happening is that the big tech companies own the AI will get richer, and the most people who do the work will be poorer or jobless.
That's very cynical. I don't necessarily think that that's 100% true.
I'm kind of 50-50.
Call me an optimist, but I don't think that's the case.
You're an optimist. There you go. Then
thank you so much.
You're welcome. No problem.
Appreciate it.
Brian says, a friend of mine, they're getting AI class, and the only thing that they're doing in class is basically writing prompts without thinking, which is supposed to be an AI engineer class. Yeah, I think that's kind of just an awkward phase of this right now. Like the whole like hiring professional prompters or whatever is basically like that should be the easiest thing to get democratized or like more commoditized. You know, that to me is the equivalent. You've already got like Auto GPT and stuff, but also think about like you could basically have a whole call center of people that are just typing in prompts for a company like that. That would realistically be what it is just a bunch of managers of computers, which that's a real whack thing to do, I feel like, but I don't know, that seems kind of feasible. Joey says, give us an optimistic example of the future of jobs then.
I don't know. I have no idea what the jobs are going to be. It's going to be crazy cool, though.
Well, think about it. What do you think?
Well, let me think about it. Let me have another bite of my pasta.
Joey says, truckers, restaurant workers, animators. One of these things is not like the others, is what that list feels like to me. But, you know, we're also biased. Joey also says, I'm not cynical. I am realistic. That does sound like...
That sounds like cynicism.
You know,
right
just
there.
to play devil's advocate, that does sound like something that a cynic would say.
That's such a cynical thing to say.
I think what Noah was getting at earlier was that when the Industrial Revolution happened, or you know what, because that's kind of a pulling, you got to pull like kind of generalized things from that because it's so long ago and none of us actually lived through that. Let's just go back as animators to go back to when there was After Effects introduced and when there was a bunch of different other programs that people were having to learn before that. Because in that example, say like a Flame or there were so many different pieces of software that sort of fell by the wayside or whatever. In each of those, you had people managing those companies. You had people who had to sell that product. You had the engineers of the software. You've got people who train to use that software, whatever. And then After Effects comes along. And suddenly Adobe is able to kind of just eat up that whole thing, right? We can kind of equate that to like basically just OpenAI, and because they've got a whole suite of tools and whatever. So in that sense, there were a bunch of people that learned After Effects and are still here. Yes. But there's probably also a pretty significant group that just went and found other jobs somewhere else, or because I was actually talking. Part of the reason that I was starting to really think about this morning was because my parents actually talked to me about it last night, and they're both early 50s, and so I'm like, if it's getting to them, it's getting pretty widespread at this point. And to me, there will always be a pretty significant group of people that are just incredibly inept with technology. Like, to me, the fact that there are so many companies that have in-house teams that basically do like what a person at an agency would, like, they have 4 people to do what one person's job is in an agency or something. Pretty menial tasks, and they're willing to pay for that sort of stuff. That's kind of been the case for a long time. It feels like there's always a madly inefficient group of people that still makes a good chunk of money. Or not people, madly inefficient group of businesses that are just so huge that, they just have a kind of inefficient workforce in some ways. And so I guess what I'm getting at is that there will still be a place for that. I mean, if we're looking at an example of, like, there used to be elevator operators, and they all protested against, like, the introduction of the button panel in elevators and letting, like, people operate them themselves. Like, that is a kind of job that just doesn't, like, you think about that now and it just doesn't make sense for it to be there. I realize that equating those things is different because that's, a pretty small group of people that are elevator operators compared to, this could disrupt like a majority of the job market.
I think that's a great metaphor. You're also peaking a little bit.
There will be some things that will just go away, and it's kind of easy for me to say as a young person to just, like, people will figure that out if they want to figure that out in terms of going and finding some other position somewhere. But I realize that's everybody has different circumstances or whatever, but we just got to find something. And also, you can use the technology to be able to try to adapt what you're doing currently, as animators anyway. But as far as truckers and restaurant workers and those sorts of things, truckers probably have a while, because I don't see any company that's just going to 100% commit to automated driving right now, because that sounds like a huge liability for whatever company decides to do that first. And restaurant workers, people still pay crazy amounts of money to go to nice restaurants. You start putting in, like, if you had like an order at the counter sort of situation at those, like you walk up like you would in McDonald's and go to the little kiosk and type in your order, it's a completely different experience. It feels more premium. And I think like someone was saying, like Nick was saying earlier in the chat, that's just like the human organic stamp on something, I guess, to have that sort of thing. What we will see is, I guess what I was kind of getting at in terms of how I titled this, or what I eventually wanted to get to, was I think the things that are threatened the most are just, I think especially the reason why animators and lots of us creative folks are kind of riled up over this sort of thing is because this threatens our ability to make money doing the stuff that we liked doing for fun or was a hobby at one point. But it threatens how we make money, like now, like an easier way to make a lot of money, but might be, just in a creative sense, a helpful push back to like really focusing on the passion for the art and the design itself. Because I mean, there's a reason why we do all this content, and we like the opportunity of YouTube and other things like that. Like, we're not making any money from it right now, but the idea of being able to focus a little bit more on entertainment and building things out in that way, rather than like necessarily building the business out to just kind of be slave to clients forever, is not a change that I'm closed off to. I would welcome that. I would love the day where like we're only working with clients that we really like working with, you know, and having that be a relatively smaller group of people rather than like having to go and try and just find any projects at all. And as for right now, like, I mean, we're not static designers. I mean, we are, but that's not like our primary business. So I'm not as worried, because you look at it's going to be a couple years probably before the animation stuff is able to catch on in terms of the fidelity that's here now, at least for like the agencies and marketing teams at bigger companies that are hiring us all out anyway, you know, like they're already willing to pay that like higher dollar than the average person might expect our work is worth. So I don't know. But also at the same time, there's a reason why a lot of people are very concerned about this, and why there is a significant group of people that you would think would be on the side of this, especially from the because it can make me money camp, but are kind of like raising the alarm and being like, y'all might want to be a little more concerned about this. Like the lead, I'm sure everybody saw that news yesterday, the lead AI, or like he's known as the godfather of AI for whatever reason, or at least that's what most of these articles are saying, left Google so that he could like freely talk about his concerns of this sort of stuff. And like you got Bill Gates and Elon and all these other tech people that signed that letter a couple weeks ago trying to like petition for a moratorium on like just letting AI run rampant for like 6 months, you know, so that we can all kind of think about like how we should implement this to where it doesn't destroy the economy. But like what you're saying, though, like that optimism only that's going to be like a long period to adjust to for a lot of people. And there will be some people that just are not able to go through that. There won't be enough money to go around if it's like all going towards this stuff. I think that's more of the concern, because that sort of shift has never happened overnight, you know? And none of the advancements or any of the stuff we've talked about has been like that huge of a disruptor that quickly.
Yeah, no, especially like, I mean, just to parallel it to like the internet, like the .com bubble, and so many like so many things, so many people lost their jobs, and like it is going to absolutely wreck some industries and mess a whole bunch of shit up. I believe that we will land in a place where it is a net positive and we won't have Terminators running around. But it's not going to be easy, and some people might have to fight a lot harder than others to stay financially afloat. Yeah, it is what it is. But I prefer to look on the bright side and see how it can benefit people, especially like me personally. Because if I don't, then you know, if you're scared of something and you just let it freeze you, and then you're not moving, and then you're static, and then you fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Just gotta keep going.
Nick says that AI art or animation is more of a stylistic choice for now and for the next couple of years. When character animation softwares came, cell animators were scared of losing their jobs, but they're still here after decades because it's such a loved animation style. That's true. Orion says, I wonder if we'll see a new trend of intentional accidents in photos, etc., when we see the quality of AI photo outputs. And later on, animation, if AI reaches the point where it produces top-notch animations. I guess another, like, if we just zoom out again to look at this, I think there's a larger problem with what we do as creatives working for businesses in this way, to where like advertising just isn't super efficient anymore, like because everybody is bombarded with ads all the time. So I mean, again, like I said, there's a reason we do this show, and we're looking and focused at like how do we make motion design fun and like make this craft something entertaining, more than necessarily like being the best at it, because that's something that can continue regardless of what's happening in the industry, because we're not really beholden to any particular goal of like, we need to help this business sell this many things of this thing, you know? We can focus a little bit more on the actual creative, on like why we like this stuff, or come up with like fun games that we want to make with this thing, like the challenge tournament or those sorts of things. Which I guess gives me a little bit of, I feel a little bit of comfort in that anyway. And I mean, we're even on the advertising side, we're relatively low budget compared to a lot of the other shops out there, but also like, I think some of the pressures being put on right now, because not only is this showing up as an alternative for a lot of companies right now, but in a time where like the economy is already not doing great, so it's already hard for us to find work in some ways. Those two things combined are trouble, because that just means like kind of a freeze on money for creative. But we're seeing that like across all sorts of different industries right now. Like design teams are being let go left and right, especially across tech, you know. But that's not to say that they're necessarily like just canning people and jumping over to AI or anything. I think it's just like, it's just not as important right now for a lot of businesses. Like they're just not as worried about it, especially the people who have been super big spenders over the past couple of years, because everybody already knows who they are anyway. So is it really that big of a deal to keep them top of mind through advertising when they're already top of mind in most cases, just through daily use with things, whether it's Apple or Google or whoever, you know? It just doesn't feel like as big of a focus as it was maybe like 10 years ago or something. Brian says, I think that's going to be the case as well for video editing or concept artists, is the one reason I'm trying to learn more of Unreal Engine 5, for example. I think a ton of people are going to jump on Unreal.
Dude, it's really cool. There's like, listen, watching Unreal Engine 5 tech demos is one of my favorite things to do on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
There's like these packs of assets that will like adapt to like roads or something that you put down. You can be like, oh, I want this section to be like you have a giant monolith of trees and rocks and stuff, and you're like, I want this section to be carved out, and it'll like automatically adjust all the assets so that it looks really natural, like Erosion did it. It's so freaking cool, man. Especially like Unreal Engine with AI lets people develop such high fidelity, interesting, exciting environments so quickly. It's so exciting to see, honestly. Sorry, environment designers. I mean, you still very much have a job, because like, at least for now, and probably for a good bit, it's not gonna, it's not people. It's not gonna have that like spark of creativity and intentionality and like knowing exactly how people are gonna perceive the environment, because it's not a person. But it's such a good tool right now. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm all on board for the like platform for us to stand on with that sort of stuff. Like it makes our workflow way faster. Like I can come out with YouTube thumbnails or any of that sort of stuff through Firefly like instantly at this point, as long as I know what I want to type and like what text I want on the thumbnail. But I really think that's going to be the bigger issue, is just that it's how easy all of this stuff is going to get to where it's going to become commoditized. It's not going to be a specialized industry as much as it is now. If anybody can do it, then it's just not worth as much money, you know? And it doesn't make for as stable businesses. Like there could be a big shift to individuals that are able to do a lot more than they necessarily were able to before. Like maybe they can take on the workload of a studio or an agency or something as a solo person. But is it really going to matter if the wages stay basically the same for doing, like technically giving more output, even if you didn't have to do as much work to get that output, you know? I think it's just going to be like a mashing together of like growing expectations of what can be done by each individual person. because there's this, each person could technically like employ however many different AI operations at the same time, you know? That's the scary part to me. I could give two shits about it being able to output an image or an animation, honestly, because I know inherently I will have different ideas than what it will come up with or what someone else will come up with, because that's just how things work. But what it doesn't matter if I can't make money from it, because this is my career, you know? That's it. And it doesn't have to be motion design. I mean, it stretches across all sorts of different industries. Like most of the places I am interested are touched by this. And there's just seemingly less monetary opportunity in a lot of those places when that exists and is well integrated, because I'll just have to do more for less money.
Which is no fun.
Nope.
Dare I say.
Nobody wants that. Which is why I completely understand that some people are mad about people using it at all, because if it gets no support, then, you know, it's less popular and not as big of an issue. But at the same time, I also kind of recognize that it's a Pandora's box situation. You can't really put it back in. So what I'm hoping happens, my sort of like brighter outlook despite all that crap, is that it will be much more in the hands of businesses that are creating all of their own tools and not just like OpenAI dominating everything, because I think that's the worst version of this, is if they just keep running rampant and making all of these different tools that are so widely adopted, because I think that's how you're able to completely screw everybody over, and they're just making a ton of money while everybody else is just like losing. Like, sure, we can all do more stuff, and like if money was no object or whatever and we all just got to experiment and play in our sandbox all day, that's great. But that's just not the case, and people need money to exist and thrive and whatever. And I don't really care if I'm able to like make stuff that I wasn't able to make before more easily, if it means that I can't really grow and kind of just like plateau in terms of what I can get as a person in terms of like actual currency. It's like money's not everything, but it's certainly a lot.
Dude, I can't wait to see what it does to the economy, honestly. I wonder if it'll make somehow money less valuable. Anyway, that's another conversation for another day. That's a massive one.
Brian says, but hasn't that always been the case with new technology, though? Like, for example, you have Roku suits versus how it was done before, or the usage of mega scans for film production. I don't know what Roku suits are, or I'd be able to answer that probably.
Like motion capture suits, maybe?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Meaning that there was just like a big team that had to do stuff before, and now it's a small group?
No, it's just a piece of technology that can do it.
Right. How small can that go, though, I guess is the question, because I feel like it is kind of finite at some point. One person can only do so much.
It goes from a whole person, like a whole team building the assets, to then the people who make the tool and the people who use the tool, as opposed to the team that does the job the tool can do. It's the people, I think. And that's not like a full one-to-one. Obviously, there's probably less people, and it is very different. But when it comes to I see that argument a lot of like, well, you know, emerging technology takes away this. Like one-to-one, the environment artists are taken away because the AI can do it. And I see less of, yes, but it also created the field of the people who are actually creating the tool and iterating on that, and the field of the, even though it's less people, the person who's actually utilizing the tool, and how much further they can take it, as opposed to having to put so much money into a whole team to do it.
Right. That's the scary thing, though. Better, faster, cheaper. The cheaper is the trend.
Better, faster, cheaper.
But when things
driven by that, yeah.
But when things get more expensive, then the cheaper is. Like at a certain point, there's got to be some breaking point, you know. that happens from that sort of trend line, because you're talking like everything consistently gets more expensive, but cost of like the actual what's the term for that? The real money, the value of people's money continues to go down just because of inflation consistently. Right. So if labor just keeps getting cheaper, like people might like have a larger number technically of money, but it will be like worth less over time. That's a bad trend. That just comes to the point where it's like money doesn't mean anything, and that definitely doesn't work.
Yeah, you'd need some like crazy technology for money to not mean anything.
That's how you get to the
like an AI technology or something. What are you saying?
I don't get what your point is from that.
Earlier, I was like, I wonder if money's just gonna like.
No, I remember. That's why I was saying that. I was hoping you'd elaborate.
And then, oh, I don't know. Like you could see that sort of trend. I have no idea. I'm just exploring right now. I have no financial knowledge really.
Well, that's okay. You can still give your opinion on it.
It's a disclaimer. It's a disclaimer, Austin. But like, perhaps there could be a societal model where the traded currency isn't so one-to-one as currency or credits or whatever. Maybe it's like, I don't know, inherent value to society. Like,
ooh,
you're a good person.
Caste system. Yuck.
That's not really what I was saying.
I feel like any other alternative is just what you get out of a like dystopia movie. You know, like I can get where those conclusions come from. Like if you're like, there's one where time is the currency. You know.
Oh yeah.
Like that's what you get, or like how long you have left to live or whatever, or then you've got like your amount of influence or your like social credit. Like China already has a social credit score or whatever. Like there's
really?
Yeah, they have like I don't know that much about it, but I know I've heard it mentioned a couple times in different contexts.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean influence is already becoming kind of a currency. I have no idea.
I don't know. It's crazy.
No idea.
I think there's going to be I know we're very like far off from ocean design now and very much just looking at like yikesville for some things on this stuff. But there's somebody asked if we're doing a portfolio review. We'll do a review of we'll do a crit in a second. But there was one more thing that I wanted to say. I can absolutely foresee a moment in the next couple years, honestly, where there's just like a massive strike and people are just like, fuck this, I'm not doing it. Like we're not participating in this shit. Because I think it is a big enough thing to where like 2/3 of people's jobs could be screwed over and just not exist anymore in the same way. And I think that's going to be too much change for people to handle. Especially since it's so quickly coming up. There's already writer strikes going on, as well as like, I mean, different studios and there's all sorts of like any union that exists is going to strike over this because it's a total threat to like any union job. I don't know. I think we might have gone too far with this one. Think we might have advanced too much this time.
Nah, it'll keep going. We'll find a nice place to land, I think, and continue from there. Maybe it begins our conquest of space. Who knows? And maybe that wipes us out, not the AI.
There you go. I'll take aliens over AI. I'm okay with that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'd rather go that way. That sounds way more interesting.
A little bit less poetic, though.
It would just be a little, well, I'd rather have that than as an AI language model, I can't provide you with water today. Or some shit like that, you know? Fun little in our little hamster balls, in our big ol' apartment
wait to get
buildings
my
where we've got
hamster
our little like water jug on the wall. Wake up in the middle of the night like a little gerbil and just go over there and grab some water, and it refills the next day. It's great. It's great, guys.
Damn, this new Matrix movie is weird.
Be sure to come down to the mess hall for a fun little bout of crepes. Crepes is the special on Tuesdays. So there you go.
Tacos were right there.
Nah, crepes.
Nah, crepes. In the future, tacos don't exist.
ChatGPT doesn't understand those mannerisms.
It says, why don't you just make it flat or like folded up fully? Why do you have to have it just like kind of a weird in between? So crepes. That's
Crepes.
what it goes with. Crepes or pizza. There's no in between.
Boom.
To think tacos are the in between of crepes and pizza. Huh. Really gets you thinking. I think that's the biggest takeaway from today.
There you go.
Throw some work.
Let's crit. Joey says, staying in the present, it definitely is exciting to see what AI is capable of. I've used Midjourney to give me ideas for 3D characters made out of breakfast food. Amazing. We use it for thumbnails. We use it for anything that I would otherwise need like a random decision maker for. Or anytime we've got a motion script where I know the idea in my head and I just need to like cycle the prompt through Firefly or whatever a couple times until it looks like what I saw in my head generally, and then I can show the team to have a better example rather than like some shitty sketch or something. I can get like a more generalized example, which I think is helpful. But
There you go. Useful.
it's useful in those ways.
Very useful. And we come back to the present. We're not all dead yet, guys. Don't worry.
Not yet. You got time.
Mm-mm.
All right. Let's
I don't
crit
have
some
my
work, shall we?
sunglasses with me today.
Ooh, you're gonna be the odd one out. That's okay.
Unless I go run. Hold on, I'm just gonna go get them. One sec.
There he's gonna go.
Yo.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of came into this. I told Noah I would play the Cynic today. And I do feel relatively just in what I've said today. But for right, like it's not gonna happen like all at once.
All right, what do we got?
All right, we've got a show reel. Here we go. Oh, actually, sorry, some context that I need to give for the show reel. This person said that they think that their work is very good and they don't understand why they are not getting or they're getting rejected from lots of positions they're applying for. That's the context. So keep that in mind. The reel is also 34 seconds. So here we go. All right.
You want to go first?
Turn that off. Yep. I hovered at 15. Again, I swear it's not that my attention span is getting lower. What it is just that like I hover when I feel like I understand the breadth of the skill set. I think one of the reasons might be that like 75% of these scenes feel like they're from tutorials that I have seen on like hundreds and hundreds of other reels. There are some shots that feel like there could be more uniquely you. Like, I haven't seen this thing before necessarily. I haven't seen that. Like, that's a good case study, whatever. This thing's interesting. And then there was one, like, red thing in here. All of those feel like stuff that was your brain and that you concepted. But, like, everything else feels like it came from a tutorial or something. This looks like it came from that, like, Ben Marriott course.
Oh, yeah.
This is, like, two things from Ordinary Folks Playground.
Yep.
And I don't know about this one, This is Desmond. This is just No Sleep Creative tutorial on making wave warp trails. It just doesn't feel very you know? Like you're not standing out amongst a bajillion other people who are submitting basically the same work, you know? Not to mention, the difference between the ones that are more like tutorial-esque in terms of easing and stuff compared to the other ones is pretty vast, it feels like. There's lots of linear keyframes going on. This section feels like one of the longest in the entire video, and it's like not even really motion. You've got some masks and some text that could be done by a video editor, you know? So if you're looking for, if I had to assume why that's happening, I think it's just like you're not really showing what you can contribute here. You're not really showing what like you as a person uniquely bring to this situation, and it doesn't feel like the work that you're doing is really coming out of a place of like it's not to say that you're not excited or passionate about motion, because like you wouldn't do these tutorials if you weren't interested, but I want to see some stuff that feels like it's coming from you, you know? I want to see some stuff that feels like it's entirely concepted by you, because that's the value that you're really going to bring to the table. Anybody could hire a freelancer to just go and animate something together, but the real value is going to be in showing like, here's some stuff that you haven't really seen before. And not that it has to be super unique, but just like, you know, show some of your like more niche motion interests by just kind of exploring in After Effects on your own. Like that thing feels like something that you just liked and wanted to make, you know? That's why it kind of stands out, and it feels more well designed than a lot of the other stuff.
Really, I think you covered pretty much all of it. A lot of your work feels just very similar to so much of the things I've seen. And it wasn't the one to do it first, so it just feels like very referential. You know what I mean? So it's like, why would people want to hire someone over another person? Is because they have something unique or more to bring to the table. And right now your reel is not giving that.
Yep. Also, just like more technical things about the reel, you could cut this in half, honestly. Like Roland in the chat says, it needs more boom boom. But we've provided plenty in terms of this being boom roasted. So there you go. Booyah.
Thank you for coming at it with like a specific question.
Yes.
I think that sort of context is very helpful.
It makes it much
more specific.
Yeah, makes it so we can give much more actionable feedback on this sort of stuff. I really would just like set aside like an hour or two once a week just to explore with no tutorial references, no internet, no nothing, just making stuff. That's going to be way easier to help separate yourself, because if you're working just within here in your little echo chamber, like you've got references and stuff already in here, but if you're just sticking to that, and it's like the only way not to fall into the trap of just like, but it's so easy to just go and be like, but I want to make this thing that's right here, you know? Try and think in, like, just bounce those ideas around in here for a little while and see what comes out, you know?
Yeah. Push yourself to do something different.
Yep. Also, as far as the design goes on some of this stuff, I really like this towards the end feels pretty modern. This is a fun, unique illustration, but there's some things in here like this and this feel very outdated. And by very, I mean we're a pretty young industry, so I'd say probably it feels like it's like 7 years old, 6 years old or something. Time flies. But there you go. Boom roasted. Sure. That's it. I've got one rec for today. Ordinary Folk put out a new piece yesterday. They shared it in the Discord, and I was just, you know, they said they didn't include any circles or orbs, so when I opened it and it was just all cubes, you know I gotta wreck it. That's just too funny. Here we go.
The cube, a simple shape, human-made and strong, with 6 sides, 12 edges, and infinite potential. It's the cornerstone of our most solid foundations, the simple beginnings of anything you can imagine. That's what Han had in mind when he started CryptoCubes, 256 unique cubes, created algorithmically, curated manually. The 3D, generative, non-fungible token collection. And now it's on chain, inspired by architecture, geometry, and space. Each art piece bridges our analog and digital worlds. CryptoCubes comes with an open API, unlocking a wealth of files, available to anyone who wants to explore and experiment with the collection, allowing these digital landmarks to be used on many platforms and expanding the project to uncharted territories. As the passion for this project grew, it inspired artists to create their own artworks based on CryptoCubes. That sparked a new chapter in creative collaboration. CryptoCubes creators. 256 unique artists are reimagining each of the original 256 CryptoCubes in their own style, releasing the artworks gradually through timed auctions. From one step to the next, CryptoCubes with CryptoCubes creators expands the foundation of the cube, moving the project forward while honoring its past. Human-made, simple, and strong. Because in the end, it's all about cubes.
All hail
All
the
about
cube!
cubes, yo.
All hail the mighty cube!
It's all about cubes, guys.
The cube.
The cube.
Yeah, let's watch it.
The cube.
The cube. All right, I'm just gonna give you my rec. It's a really great one by this very little known designer.
Up and comer, perhaps?
I think it's pronounced Osteen Beowens.
That sounds about right.
So Osteen Beowens, he made a very interesting little. It's that middle top one right there.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Like middle top, isn't there's like a top on it, or just like?
Well, yeah, just like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
perfect.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wow. Okay,
So,
this
yeah,
looks
so
interesting.
Let's just like check it out. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh no! Oh no! There we go.
No.
Sorry, copyright. Dude, that car's going so fast. How's it? What? Dude, that's a pretty cool wreck.
Oh, that end like sound thing is really fun.
Ron Rocco really went overboard with the sounds. It was kind of great. That was fun. Yeah, thanks for y'all that hung out on the stream for those. I was so exhausted in the days after making that thing on stream, but it was worth it. I'm hoping that it gave some insight to some of y'all.
I love this thing, man.
It's fun, dude. Tried to break out of the normal, you know.
Glad I could contribute a little idea to that scene.
Oh yes, because I had no idea what that last scene was going to be, or the second to last scene.
Definitely
was gonna
make
be.
a car driving on water.
Yeah.
Definitely do that.
And I originally wasn't gonna make the car because I was like, oh, it's gonna take too long. I don't want to do that. It's too much effort.
Yeah, I think it turned out fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a really fun scene, I think.
It's a fun vibe. It's a fun vibe. The song was just too good to pass up. I think I saw it on TikTok that only had like 10,000 views or something. And this artist has none of their work digital on in terms of the music. It's only on vinyl because it's like this Japanese artist from the 80s or something. And
Damn.
they just
Someone digitized
won't release
this
it
man's
anywhere.
work.
So they
Is he still
well
alive?
yeah, actually. I think so. I hope I don't have that wrong. I don't have him on the show. We should get the guy who made the paintings that I was inspired by for that stuff, because he
Ooh, you're so
actually
right.
is. He's still around.
Great.
He'd probably be cool to talk to.
That would be
Speaking
that'd be
of-
such a fun little segment, like doing a piece and then being like, we're gonna get the person
that we
who
were
was
inspired by. That'd be cool.
to be on here, and we can talk about like their approach when it comes to like art and design and stuff.
Speaking of people that we're inspired by that we can talk to, tomorrow we will be chatting with Haley from Motion Hatch live on the show. We still have to get our questions to her, so we'll do that today. Sorry, Haley, just a second. And other than that, that's the show.
That's the show, y'all.
No, there's no real conclusion to the AI conversation, and there won't be. But it was good to just give some perspectives anyway. Hope that it was marginally helpful in some way. All right. If you want to get your work critiqued like we did today, there's a link in the description to take you to a Google form to do that. Also, to join the Review Discord, we just released the next theme for the challenge for this week. Tournament. We'll be looking at the next bracket on Monday. So be sure to join that for updates there. In the meantime, and other than that, use hashtag Daily Motion Show when you post on social, and we just might